Today we're talking about cycles. Um, Cycles of life, and how also it's related to everything, including our crypto economies, empires rise and fall, waves rise and fall, crypto rises and falls. Basically, you will see this energy pattern playing out everywhere in life. And so what I'm going to explore is how it does move in cycles, and including technology, economics, and currencies, and it's all underpinned by nature. Basically, even if there's a manipulated market, per se, going on, that manipulation is still governed by an invisible energy that people aren't even conscious of. Obviously, there's things that people do, that man does, that buck the trend of nature. But when that happens, when people are doing things against natural cycles for any length of time, it will always get smashed down, and it will always be seeking to come back into balance. Everything nature does, it's always seeking balance. And so if we're out of balance, there will be things happening to us. When you've been through a tough time and we've been out of balance, or our thought patterns have been, not grounded, we tend to get smacked. We get a challenge, we get an obstacle, we get something happening, and that sort of gets us back on track, if you like, sometimes through difficulties and through tough times, like we're seeing in the world today. Basically, what's playing out in the world is a super cycle, and a lot of converging things are happening. So we've got to keep our watch on what's happening. So let's look at the natural cycles and seasons. Seasons of life. There's the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. But we also have a spring, summer, autumn, winter in our own life, and we're going through these cycles all the time. And so we know these, we all know these cycles and accept them as a part of life without even questioning it. We kind of take them for granted. That's just life. But when you really examine the seasons and examine energy cycles, you'll see, it brings some surprising sort of information. And it's what actually, by doing this helps us to raise our consciousness. Really, that's the whole object, is to go with the flow, not to resist. So in spring, the best things in spring is what you do in spring. You seed things, you plant your seeds, you're sowing plants, it's all about new growth. It's more light coming to the planet, more warmth, longer days. But that warmth and light and those longer days affect us in a direct way. It makes us more active. It gets us outside more. It gets us doing things outside after the winter hibernation. And then when we move into summer, we get even more active. This is when we're at our peak of energy, our peak of action. You could say the heat sort of heats us up. It brings passion, if you like, for what you're doing. It's, you get long hot days and shorter nights. So you could say there's more light coming into your life, and the darkness is receding. And and we can actually harmonize with these seasons, with our own life and our own businesses. This is the thing, just to go when you're in the summer of your life, you're most productive. And then after the summer, it must fall, go into the fall of autumn, and that's when we harvest. That's the harvest time. It's when things come into balance of light and dark. Light and dark at the equinoxes are of equal proportions. It's time to slow down. It's time to prepare for winter, and like the squirrel gathering the nuts. And it's also, you could say that in ancient times, this was very much how they had to run their life. When they had winter coming, they had to go out, gather food, store it, and all of that. And that is inscribed into our genetic structure today. We have a primal aspect of our life that is indelibly inscribed into the very cellular structure of our life. And then, of course, we reach winter, and winter serves a very important purpose. Winter is a time where we go within, sit around the fire. It's when you spend more time indoors, more time communicating with your family and your loved ones. It's a time to review. It's a time to plan. So in long nights, low light, and so that's a great time to rest. It's a great time to just do your down tools, and you basically just use that time to rest, recharge, think back on the previous year, so that then when the spring comes again, you know what you're doing, you know your plan, you've reviewed what went right and what went wrong from the last seasons, and so you're moving ahead. And if we're moving in alignment with these cycles, then our life will flow far more productively and easily without any resistance. So therefore, 4 seasons, there's 4 key quadrants to a year. And these quadrants, they're signified, as I say, by the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices. And these are also directional. These are also pointing to directions. So back in ancient times, they celebrated the equinoxes and they celebrated the solstices. This is what the solstice. This is what they were all about. This is what they were celebrating. Is the change of the natural cycles, and because these times of the year signal key primal drivers of life. Basically, in the early days, the first major, you could say, human development was agriculture. And so agriculture came about from obviously an advancement in consciousness, and the agriculture was obviously very dependent on the seasons. And so they used the seasons, and this is how they survived. This is how our ancestors survived, by reading the seasons, and they knew whether a harsh winter was coming or whether it was going to be a wet winter or a dry summer, and they would be able to plan accordingly. And and arguably agriculture was the most major advancement in human civilization after the invention of the wheel and the discovery of fire. So these are very primal things. Again, they're very much inscribed in our genetic structure. So these equinoxes and these seasons, they're depicting this dance of light and dark, positive and negative, action versus inaction, life versus death, masculine versus feminine. And these dramas is what we see playing out on the earth today. We talk about this is a battle of light and dark. This is people say, what should we do? And people say we should do nothing. And other people say You can't sit around and do nothing. You've got to be doing something. So we're constantly in this push-pull thing of what should we do, what should we not do. It's all about the polarity that's on Earth. And then we're really in this ultimate thing is about life and death. It's about facing death as another cycle of life, and it's about also facing our life and getting ourselves in the right priorities in the right order. So so basically, as I say, these equinoxes, these solstices signify directions, and each direction, each season has a specific direction. You could say that equinox is in its home direction, and this is how, like the native Indians created the medicine wheel so that they could actually enact this out. They created the medicine wheel, the 4 directions and the 4 colors, and you face each different direction in the ceremony, and you're literally receiving different kinds of energy into your being. So in our southern hemisphere, the north direction depicts summer. It depicts the action, because we're in the southern hemisphere. If we were in the northern hemisphere, these would be reversed. And for us, south, the direction of south depicts the winter, because that's where the southerly winds come from. That's the cold sector of our property. If you go on the southern side of your property, it's very noticeable for me on a few acres, because I really notice the difference in growth, different types of trees, more water over there where it's much drier over on the north. So, these are all things that impact the earth and us. And then east is the spring, the rising sun, the new sun. That's the spring. And west is the autumn. The west is also related to water, beginning of the rains, whereas east is, you could say it's related probably to, I would say, more to air. The south is related to the earth, winter, it comes together, and the summer is fire. So they're pretty primal, elemental ways of understanding ourselves in life. And these directions and these seasons all in turn have a direct effect and direct relation to our thoughts, to our feelings, the intentions, our actions, and our inaction, depending on what season and what direction we're dealing with. So there is a direct correspondence to our life through these constant turning of the wheel, constant music of the spheres, as well, sometimes referred to. So so these advancements in human evolution from food, from the original industry of agriculture, was pure survival then. Now we've evolved into a technological era, and it's all about scalability. It's all about speed. It's all about doing everything fast. Where back in the very early days, it was about doing everything very slowly and simply. And now we're going into a more complex world where we want, everything speed. Technology has sped everything up. And now they talk about scalability all the time in technological terms, in reference to crypto and the blockchain. You need a scalable blockchain to stay up with the play. So we've evolved a long way. So these are the sort of key versions or iterations of human development, starting from agriculture. That was the earliest farming. It was horticulture as well, food production and food storage. That's really what life was all about. It all revolved around that. And the family, obviously, and the clan, if you like. And then as we evolved, then money came along. And originally it was gold. Gold was the best store of value then, still is today. It's gold, and we had gold coins, we had silver coins and gold bars. And eventually they morphed into gold certificates, where you'd store your gold with your trusted, in those days it wasn't called a bank, but you would go to the gold dealer and he would store your gold and he would give you a certificate. And that certificate became paper money. And then coins got phased out, the real silver and gold coins, the sovereign coins, they call them, they got phased out. And now we've got pure paper money. We've got banking through fiat currency. And now we're going into the next version of money, which is crypto and digital money. So that's the next cycle, if you like, of the money cycle. Then after money, then civilization, human development took another leap forward when writing came along, when different writing, but mainly revolved around the printing press, really. Books were created. And this took a big leap forward, because then the general masses could get access to the knowledge that was normally kept just by the kings and queens and the royalty. So the printing press was a major disruption of that day, just as crypto and blockchain is the major disruption of today. So, these are all relative to the time. So this is where knowledge got shared, contracts were formed, anything to do with writing, distribution of writing. Now we've got, obviously social media, and we've got digital ebooks and all of that. So it's all moving again in the same digital manner. Then came industry, and with industry there came the big factories. Oil was powering the factories. Oil was powering our cars, our automobiles, and machinery. And we had steel, and electricity got invented, and power generation. And so it all revolved around industry, making things, building houses, to oil refinery, to steel mills, to all basically building our cities and all our machines. And you notice that each of these cycles are very, very long cycles in the early days. And as we get further closer to today, they were speeding up. The industrial age is only about 200 odd years old. The agriculture age was probably thousands of years. And now we're really speeding up as we entered the internet age. Internet, you could lump that in with personal computers as well, email, websites, texting came along, then mobile phones came along, then and we had PCs, and everything was around the internet and having a website and selling online, buying online, and all of that. And now we're entering the age of Web3, which is decentralized finance, blockchain-enabled internet, not a centralized internet, but now the internet is going decentralized. We've got things like AI, self-custody of our own money, which is a big leap forward in the money sense. Peer-to-peer transacting, NFTs, which is non-fungible tokens, which will lead ultimately to tokenization of real-world assets, where your real-world assets are secured on the blockchain. Best of both worlds, the best of digital and the best of real tangible assets. So these are, I've got these are from the Sixth Society. I actually got these off the Sixth Society and I just adapted them to this talk. It was actually really, really useful. Now another guy that I've listened to a reasonable amount is a guy called Ray Dalio. He owns a very successful hedge fund called Bridgewater Finance. He's actually one of the good guys, or the billionaires out there who actually is a real human who seems to care about the world. He's made himself a lot of money, but I don't think he's part of the club, if you like. And he's written a book. I forget the name of it, but out of that, I've borrowed this part about cycles, and he calls it the 5 cyclic forces of human life. And as he says, human history always has repeating patterns. And so when you understand history and the patterns and the cycles, you can start extrapolating that out and understanding where we are today, why we are here today, and where we might be going from here. So his 5 cyclic forces are financial or economic. He calls them forces, sort of a force of nature, if you like, or energy force. So is the financial and economic force. And that's all the cycles of expansion of credit, contraction of credit, printing money, quantitative easing, they call it, to quantitative tightening, where they pull money out of circulation, debt cycles, currency to cycles, recessions and then depressions and booms and busts, and interest rate cycles, and you go on and on. And within this, obviously, we have the cycles within each individual stock or bond or crypto, whatever it is. You have the cycles within the actual individual financial instrument or asset or whatever it is. And, we've particularly seen it strongly in these currency cycles. The rise of the US dollar is now starting to it's reached its peak. It's coming down now. And the debt has obviously reached historic highs. So clearly what goes up, as they say, must come back down. And so we're at the end of a super cycle of financial and economic cycles. Then he's got his next one is domestic, what he calls domestic order force. This is all about what's happening domestically in each individual nation, the internal country pressures, the government and what the government is doing, the wealth gap, the cycles within jobs, incomes are rising and falling, whatever, education, religion, morality, and politics. And all of this leads to a general decline in society. Basically, the chaos comes in, just like what we're seeing now. And as that comes in, there's an inevitable rise in populism, a rise in people power and people protesting and people rising up because our standard of living is obviously going down. So that's the domestic, that's the internal force of each country. Then you have the international order force. These are the conflicts that are going on between countries and between continents, the geopolitical tensions between nations. It's all about what brings us to war. It's all a fight. A war is usually a fight over money or resources. It's a reallocation of resources. Power shifts from one country or one set of countries to another set of countries. And that's exactly what is going on today. The wars in Ukraine and in Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, these are all fighting over oil, natural gas, minerals, currencies, these currency wars. This is all a battle for power. And with those who have the best resources for the day will have the power. Oh, and computer chips. That's the Taiwan, China thing is all about computer chips. These are the important things that our life depends upon at the moment. So we have rises and falls of empires. The USA is the sole empire of the world. It's starting to crumble, and the US dollar is also crumbling with it. Then we have the nature force. These are the natural climate change. There is a natural climatic change going on. We know that there's another narrative around that, but there's definitely is a natural climate change. There's weather patterns are changing. There's solar cycles. There's the seasons seem to be changing. Summer's getting later, whatever, or in some areas summer is getting longer. In other areas winter is getting longer. All those sort of cyclic seasonal things slightly shifting. Electromagnetism, that's a pure natural cycle which governs a lot of our activity on Earth. And that's also very directly related to the sun and the solar cycles. Earthquakes, volcanoes erupting, and all of this has economic implications. In fact, all of these cycles all have major financial and economic implications. Money is really at the center of a lot of this. And then you have the technology force, which has really become really apparent in the last decade or two. In history, the tech was things like gunpowder and guns and machinery and other military equipment, aircraft. Now it's emerging as AI, blockchain, metaverse, crypto, Web3, the decentralization, energy technology, quantum computers. These are all the new technologies that are now come into frame, and therefore people are fighting over it. So this is why we have so much war going on, because you've got different countries with different needs, and they're forming new alliances, they're breaking old alliances, they're trying to, some are coming together in order to get safety, and then they're battling other countries that are coming together to try and basically a whole power battle going on. And so basically this is kind of where we're at today. Which is, we are entering a super cycle of chaos where all these major cycles and minor cycles are all colliding together at the same time. See, this is why it's huge. So all the major cycles described by Ray Dalio have economics at their heart. Money is at the heart. Currency is at the heart. That's why crypto is important, because it's at the forefront of a new direction that we're going. And So these cycles are all now merging and colliding. And so really no one is in control of the outcome here. When people get all upset and fearful about the plans and what the WEF is doing and the United Nations, they themselves are absolute pawns in this bigger game, and they really don't have the power to control what's going to happen. They are doing their best, but they are fighting for their own survival. They know they are on a one track. They know that if they feel, well, for them, if they don't fight, they're going to get wiped out anyway. So I don't put too much emphasis on what they're doing or what they're not doing or what they said or what they're planning. I just really couldn't give a shit, actually, what they're doing anymore. I just think there's much, much greater forces at work here than anything that they could ever do. And so I think we put far too much emphasis on them, place far too much importance on them and what they're doing. Really, they're just minions who are running around, who've got way too much money and are way too greedy and got way too much time on their hands, and they don't like us very much. But yeah, they're causing a lot of damage, obviously. But this is where we've got to take our power back, and we can utilize natural forces. We can use our own natural energy to do that. So reality, the natural forces really underlie all the other cycles and forces I've just gone through. The seasons, the technology, the economics, whether it's man-made or not, it is all underpinned by nature. Reality itself is the result of this is really drilling down into the energy side of it now. The reality of energy itself is the result of four fundamental forces, which are gravity, the weak force, electromagnetism, and the strong force. So gravity is what holds everything together. That's what creates a physical body. That's what creates matter. Gravity is like the glue that binds everything together. That gives us the 3D physical world and our earth and our body and material things. It prevents us from spinning apart and from spinning off the planet as well. Gravity is counter rotation going on, there's counter forces to the spinning of the planet is being managed by other rotational forces that keep us in a sort of a stillness. And then there's the weak force, which doesn't mean weak in power. It means weak in the sense that it governs the decay or the death, in this case, of subatomic particles. All subatomic particles have a lifespan just like us. They get born and they have their peak and then they die. This is the ultimate cycle: is birth, growth, and death. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva is represented in the Indian pantheon gods. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the preserver, Shiva is the destroyer. That personifying these forces of nature, these electromagnetic and subatomic forces. So, but this decay creates nuclear fission. It's also what is responsible for how the sun wouldn't exist without the weak force decay energy. Then you have electromagnetism, which is obviously electricity. It's the electric principle and the magnetic together. This allows for electricity, power generation, movement, and energy. Internal and external energy is created through electromagnetism. It works with gravity, and it's really created out of the ether. It's created out of the etheric element, which is it's the fifth element, the non-earth element, but yet it's the source of Earth, but yet it's beyond Earth, but it's also within everything as well. It's the ultimate sort of blueprint, if you like. And then there's what's called the strong force, which we've got gravity that holds everything together, but then at a deeper, again at a subatomic particle level, the strong force holds the particles together at the very smallest level. And this helps to form new particles. New particles are born out of the strong force. And this is what creates our elements. The elements on the periodic table come out of this, out of these reactions. You know, hydrogen, oxygen, all the gases and the elements, all the was it gases, and it's metals and all different. They're the prime elements of life on the periodic table, which in turn then give us the 4 prime elements of earth, air, fire, and water. So these are the building blocks of what we're made of. These are all this is all what's going on at an energetic level, and these are all bound by natural forces that actually govern what we do in our life, and even govern economics and all of that. So if you look at a chart, and in this case, this is the 7-day chart of Bitcoin, the last 7 days of Bitcoin. So really what you're looking at is a chart, or you're looking at, you could say that what does it remind you of? It reminds me of a heart monitor. That's really, you could say that could be a monitor of someone's beating heart easily. I mean, I've seen others that are really more accurate than this, but you get the picture. There's the general concept is that these movements of the Bitcoin price are literally connected, directly connected to natural forces beyond our mind comprehension, all based on natural energy. And the graphic representation of the chart, it really tells a picture. That could be an earthquake. It could all be an earthquake monitor. It could be lots of other things as well, so there's lots of parallels in this. And if you're looking at a more, this is, you could say this is the movement of the sun. This is like the sun as it goes around the earth tilt and all that. This is what they call a sine wave. And this is a perfect depiction of an energy wave. That's because that's what we're charting here, is really, it's kind of energetic waves, and it looks like the wave of an ocean. And you can have these cycles, these rises and falls of cycles could measure just about anything, from the very, very tiniest thing, from the life of a subatomic particle to history itself and the rise and falls of civilizations. And this could be a crypto chart. This is a very simplified one, but that's basically the trajectory that it takes. It goes up and it goes down, and it goes up and it goes down. And because it's quite new, and crypto's in its spring, it's in its new growth, it will be trending up, and that's exactly what it's doing. So this sort of gives you a bit more of a concept of what, of how these energies work and how the cycles work. So cycles are representations of waves of energy portrayed all throughout life. Breathing, heart rate, blood pumping, waves on the ocean, the flow of a river, the way creates eddies and spirals as it flows down the river, air currents and wind, fire, earthquakes, in the movement of the sun and the moon and the stars in relation to the earth, our own lifespan, even in our life, we have first, you could say the first 21 years is our spring. The next 21 years is our summer. The next 21 years is our autumn. And the next 21 years, if we make it that long, is our winter. And so that's sort of roughly, that's 84 years. That's roughly the average lifespan of a human being. And then within that, you'll have smaller cycles, and you've obviously got larger cycles going to generational cycles and all of that. So you can measure them any which way you like, but the cycles will show up everywhere. Trees and plants, the way they grow from seed to growth to harvest to decay and constantly cycle around, the way they look, the way they grow, as well as their birth and their growth and death, all related to cycles. And then, as I've mentioned, this extrapolates into technology, economies, price movements on stock and crypto, and all types of human and man-made creations as well. There's an unseen force that's behind everything. Even the most heinous things that are happening on Earth, we don't have to condone them, we don't have to like them, but the fact is they're all being dictated by cycles. They're all there's always people being sacrificed. You could say they're sacrificed in the name of a higher ideal that you could say the divine God or whatever is orchestrating. Nothing is going to waste. Nothing is happening purely randomly. There's no randomness in this world. Even the war in Palestine, as horrific as it is, there is a higher natural principles involved as to why that is happening. And it's just these things that have got to play out so that we can learn our lessons. We're really quite still babies as far as the evolution of humans go, and we've got to start growing up. We've got to start moving into adulthood and acting like grown-ups instead of little kids with their very destructive toys. So basically, we have to know where you are in the cycle to understand how to act or when to act as well. So when you read the past cycles, you can pretty accurately predict what might come in the future. And that's what I've spent a lot of my time doing actually over the years without consciously being aware of it for a long time until relatively recently. I was always fascinated with history, the birth of humanity, when did it happen, how did it happen, and what's been happening ever since. And I've researched, Egypt, Babylonia, Sumeria, Greece, and always fascinated by how everything would reach its peak and then it would decline and then it would rise again and then it would fall again, rise and fall. And that's how it's gone throughout history. There's been a lot of bloodshed on this earth because we're pretty basic sometimes, but we are slowly starting to grow up and awaken in consciousness. So, and same with our market, with the crypto market, after a long bear market must come the bulls and vice versa. So we know we're in a bit of a trough now, but we're just starting on the next run up. When the bears are basically getting replaced by the bulls. In reference, they use the animals as references. I think that's quite funny. But basically, yeah, a bear goes into hibernation, a bull goes charging ahead. And so that's kind of how the markets will play out till the end of time. And nothing moves up in a straight line, much like nature. Nothing's going to go in a straight line. Nothing will go up forever. Nothing will go down forever either. So we've got to sort of get out of this mentality of, permanence. My crypto's going up. Oh, it's going to keep going up and up. And this is why it's important sometimes to maybe consider taking profit or, storing some of the value that you've earned and keeping that aside, keeping some powder dry, as they say, for the next downturn, so you can buy back in. But nothing goes in a straight line, so don't get fixated that your crypto is just going to go up and up and up without having undulations and without having a drop eventually. As the higher it goes, the higher it will go, the further it will fall. But the longer the base, the higher in space as well. So when something's been flatlining for a longer time, the longest it's been doing, like XRP, it's a classic example. It's formed a huge base. So they say that eventually when it's set free, higher in space it will go. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that we are going through now is always happened in the past. History is always repeating, or it's at least rhyming. So this is nothing new. It's just old. It's just new in the sense it seems new to us, and it's new that we're dealing with slightly different things on Earth and whatever. But these cycles have played out since the beginning of time, and they will continue to play out long after we're gone. So that's basically that's my presentation for today. We've got a few minutes where we can have a quick